All right, let's jump right into a story about one of the most incredible feats of scholarship you can imagine. It's all about a 17th century theologian named John Owen and a monumental project he undertook. It's a story that's really all about insane focus and what it means to have a lifelong dedication.
That really brings us to the core question, doesn't it? I mean, really think about that for a second. Not just a couple of years, but your entire life spent focused on unpacking just one single ancient book. What could possibly drive that kind of dedication?
So, to give you a sense of the sheer scale of this thing, we're not talking about a little paperback you can toss in your bag. Nope. The final result was 4 absolutely massive folio volumes. These are the kinds of books that are practically furniture. This wasn't just some writing project. It was his entire life's work made into a physical object.
So you gotta ask, right? Why this book? Out of everything he could have studied, what was so special about the Epistle to the Hebrews that made him say, yep, this is it. This is my life's work? Well, turns out, in the grand architecture of Christian thought, Hebrews plays this unique and totally crucial role.
Okay, so for a little context, you have to imagine you're an early Jewish convert to Christianity. You're feeling this pull to go back to your old traditions. The impressive ceremonies, the deep history, the whole system you grew up with. The entire point of the Epistle to the Hebrews was to show these converts that the new way, the gospel, wasn't just abandoning the old way, but was actually the ultimate fulfillment of everything the old system had been pointing to all along.
And this quote just nails it. The epistle is described as the keystone. You know how a keystone works in an arch, right? It's that one stone at the very top that locks both sides together and gives the whole thing its strength. Well, that's what Hebrews does. It connects the Old and New Testaments into one solid, coherent structure. Without it, the whole arch might just fall apart. So this brings us back to the man of the hour, John Owen. He saw how important this keystone was, and he basically made it his personal, lifelong mission to excavate every single ounce of meaning from it. Not just for other scholars, but for everybody.
And this timeline, it's just wild. The guy would not quit. He publishes the first volume during some really harsh political times. The second one comes out while his health is failing, and he's stuck in all these public arguments. But he just keeps going, decade after decade, until the final volume was published right after he died. He was literally working on it right up to the very end.
So how in the world do you even structure something this gigantic? I mean, where do you even start with 4 massive books on one text? Well, Owen had a plan, a really clear, methodical system. For every single passage, he broke it down into 3 simple steps. First, the critical part, where he gets nerdy with the original Greek and Hebrew. Second, the doctrinal part, where he zooms out to unpack the big theological ideas. And finally, the practical part, which answers the question, okay, so what? How does this actually apply to my life? It was a brilliant way to make it both deep and incredibly useful.
But get this, before he even touched the main commentary, he wrote a series of these huge preliminary essays. It's like before building the skyscraper, he spent years just laying the foundation. He tackled everything. Who wrote the book? What are the core beliefs? What about old Jewish traditions? Christ's role as a priest? He even did a massive deep dive on the Sabbath. He was basically answering every question you could possibly have before you even thought to ask it.
So Owen dies, the monumental work is finally finished. What happens next? Well, its legacy just starts to explode. His voice, as the saying goes, didn't just fade away, it continued to speak. And the praise that rolled in was incredible. A really influential figure, Dr. Chalmers, called it a work of gigantic strength as well as gigantic size. He basically said that if you could truly master Owen's work, you're pretty much a top-tier theologian yourself. I mean, that's a heck of an endorsement. And then there's this quote, which, wow, it's so dramatic, but it gets the point across. 2 later historians wrote that anyone who wouldn't sell the shirt off their back to buy this work cared more for their body than for their immortal mind. It just goes to show how vital, how nourishing people thought this book was. And the story of how it all ended is really something. As Owen was finishing the final proofs for the very last volume, he reportedly just put his pen down and said, "Now my work is done. It is time for me to die." And he passed away shortly after. It's like he knew he had completed his great purpose on earth. And so, in the end, a phrase from the very book he dedicated his life to became his perfect epitaph, "Being dead, yet speaketh." Because through this unbelievable work, his voice, his intellect, and his passion are absolutely still speaking, centuries later. It leaves all of us with a pretty powerful question to chew on, doesn't it? John Owen found an idea so important that he gave it his entire life. It really makes you wonder,
In our world, right now, what ideas are that big? What, if anything, is worth that kind of devotion?